Good morning and welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could please stand, join us with the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the state flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, as a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the regular meeting agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the regular meeting agenda.
The second motion?
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Elected official reports. We can start with Sheriff Gomez, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Before I start our stats, I'd like to introduce three deputies. Two of them are new employees with ours, and another one's he's been with the county in 2016, started with us last year, but is also a graduate of Western New Mexico's Law Enforcement Academy of last Friday. The first deputy is Deputy Wellborn. He's been with us since 2016 and did graduate from the academy. Mr. Trevor Jensen is certified, came from Game and Fish, one of our new employees and certified. And Deputy Gabriel Reynolds graduated from Western New Mexico's Academy. I'd just like to introduce him to you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. In regards to some of our stats, I'd like to start with our civil division. For the month of June of 2019, domestic violence notices that were issued were 20. Notices of intent of 53. Subpoenas served throughout the county 137. Summonses were 62, and writs 4. Our outside of the county, our civil division did 19 transports for a total mileage of 3,834 miles for the month. In regards to overall stats, our burglaries have decreased, and this is a comparison from last year of this time to now. This year we've had 1 so far versus 8 of last year. Domestic violence is on the rise. For now, we have 29 versus 17 from last year. Our larcenies have decreased. We've had 6 versus 9 from last year. Our livestock complaints, and this would be where it takes more the driving time, going to the Mimbres or down to the Gila Cliff areas where we have livestock on the roadways, and we are working with the livestock inspector, being that we're short-staffed, but our deputies are responding, trying to make contact with the owners of the animals and trying to get the livestock off the roadway. But this year, so far for the month, we've had 12 versus last year 6. On harassments, it's on an increase as well, and it continues to do also with the domestic violence. For the month, we've had 15 from last year 13. Our welfare checks again remains a very high. We've had 44 versus last year of 35. Animal complaints getting dispatched either to dog bites or dogs running at large. We've had 24 versus last year of 22. Civil standbys again are an increase of 13 versus last year of 6. Our crash reports, of course, are on the rise from being that the Sheriff's Office pretty much is taking care of all crash reports. We've had 31 versus last year of 21. And going with our new things that we are taking care of, State Police does help if they're in the area. We did have a fatality last month, during the month, where our deputies were on scene, but State Police did end up taking that call. My thing is that with the training that we're doing, I do want to have some deputies that are reconstructionists, and if we end up in a fatal or great bodily harm, I want our deputies to have that training so in case we don't have state police or our guys are there, we will be taking care of the fatalities. And we got a reconstruction class that is coming in here in August that we're looking at sending a deputy to get certified as a reconstructionist. Our Tri-City stats, Hurley's been really not much activity in Hurley, a couple of disturbances, 2 calls. In Santa Clara, we've had 5 major calls that we've dealt with, from domestic, traffic stops, suspicious vehicles, approximately 3 to 4 employee hours per call. We had a criminal call where a criminal investigative detective was called out on the scene, which took about 4 employee hours from patrol and 10 employee hours from our criminal investigative division. In the past, if we were dispatched to some type of criminal call in a municipality, we would write the report and forward it to the respective municipalities. I've gone to the point to where if we're writing the report, we're going to follow through and we're going to finish it up. I believe just for keeping the chain of custody, and I mean, I don't understand why we would be giving that report for someone else to follow up if we've actually initiated that call. With Baird, I mean, Baird's been awesome. Chief Alides, we've had 2 calls where we've assisted Baird. Baird is back on a 24-hour coverage, and Chief Alides began his 12-hour shifts to address this issue and has been successful to this point. That's all I have for you all in the staff questions.
Where do you stand on as far as manpower?
Right now, with our deputies that we have hired, we're still short 6. We are in the background and doing background interviews on 2 that are certified. So every day we're looking better. And now having the 3 that are certified, we have one that I spoke about, Deputy Walford. He was with our office. Here in about 2 weeks, he'll be released on his own. After he's gone through the FTO program, he just had to go through the academy. So in about 2 weeks, we'll have more on patrol. Their deputy that came from Game and Fish, he's certified, has been working for about 2 years. I foresee him being out within a month, just knowing the county, our CAD system. He is originally from this area, so he does know the area, just knowing the system of what a county does, or with the paperwork that we use in our CAD system. And our last deputy, Mr. Reynolds, Deputy Reynolds, he'll be going through the 9-week field training until he completes it, and he'll be released on his own.
Thank you. Any further questions?
So what's the status of the 4 then? So you're doing background checks on 2? Is that what you said? And so you would still have 4 more to go, right? If the 2 go through their background checks and get hired?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Edwards, we actually have about 10 that we're doing backgrounds on right now. Okay. My goal is, we do have 2 that have been hired. Actually, we have one that'll start on July 8th and is uncertified. Okay. And we have another one that just passed his psych and is going to his medical. And once he's completed, he'll be in the office. But again, they'll be uncertified, so they'll be attending the academy in December. And again, with the other those are completed already and have been hired with the office of the sheriff. So the other background that we're doing now, we're looking at certified versus uncertified because of the expense that it's going to cost us with the academy. With Director Gil Nahat from Western, we've had a great transparency with them, and with our instructors and stuff, we're working on possibly getting a cadet or 2 that would go in without being paid, as long as our deputies are providing instruction for the academy.
So you have people in the pipeline that, if everything goes well, you would be able to fill the 6 positions that you have open?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. That's good news. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I had a brief comment. I wanted to second your compliments of Chief Alides. I've gotten to know him in the Regional Dispatch Authority. Seems like an excellent professional. I commend the city of Baird. I see Councilor Kelly in the audience. You guys made a great hire. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I can say he's been awesome. We've met with them about 3 times at our office, and the transparency with them in Baird, and I mean, we're here to offer our services to them and to all whoever needs it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
You know, one of the things that troubles me is all the service we're providing to Heritage to Santa Clara. Have any formal requests been made for reimbursement? I feel that even if you're not actually doing calls, you're standing by, you have to have personnel ready and everything, but surely, money from them would help your training budgets or something that you need. I don't find it totally equitable that we provide the service for nothing. So I just wonder if a formal request has been made to the mayors of Heritage and Santa Clara.
No formal requests have been made, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Salas. I was looking into some different MOUs, like Catron County. Catron County, the Sheriff's Office provides services for reserve. And there's an MOU in place where they're paid for a deputy or two out of their funding to provide the services. So I was comparing some of those MOUs that they had there, and we're looking at different places as well. Bernalillo County does the same. So we're just trying to get some type of packet on it with Manager Webb and to present it to you all and see what you guys think.
Sure, and if you need any commission assistance, please let us know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, audience, elected officials. And interesting to say, this morning on my show, I had the Silver Girls softball, on the show, talking about their state championship that they fell kind of short. But I just want to say congratulations to the Cobre High young ladies that made their state champs. So that's really wonderful. I've been seeing you guys, I've been reporting you guys, and really congratulations. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Once again, my report is actually quite brief, and because I will be giving my commissioner's report from the state, from Property Tax Division come July. One of the reasons is because our certifications were late 15 days, okay? Thanks to my chief deputy, my chief appraiser, and my staff. We'll have all those numbers, and Glenn, you will be getting a copy of my PTD 1s, 2s, 3s, and copper production. And all those numbers will actually be there, okay? We need to file them by the end of this week, and that's the 28th of February, and the certification numbers to see what we have in valuation maintenance, net new, and it's sent to Property Tax Division, then it gets on over to the Department of Finance, and we'll know exactly how much tax dollars Grant County will get. For starters, I really enjoyed going to Clovis. I've never been to Clovis, Roosevelt County, and I know it's Charlene's backyard, and I thought it was very positive. We really had a good time. We really had some really interesting conversations in our affiliate, talking about full disclosure here in the state of New Mexico. We talked about the 3% cap. We are going to strive to get full disclosure here in the state of New Mexico. Sadly to say that we're one of the states in the whole nation that we don't have full disclosure, and I made the comment that we will have a support, not only through our commissioners, through the whole state of New Mexico, about getting full disclosure here in the state of New Mexico. It's quite interesting because I cannot do my land studies as proper as I can, for the simple reason because I have no data. So we came up with some other information about full disclosure, so we'll talk about that down the road, and hopefully that our commission can actually get together and write a resolution to support this. We probably won't do it on this short session because we're coming on a 30-day session, but we're preparing for the long session the year before next. Every year, the Property Tax Division has these schools called the IAAO. It's the International Association of Assessing Officers. It's actually a stipend for my employees to take these classes. It's 1 week of a semester. So in other words, in 1 week, they push a whole semester of class. Okay, once you pass this class, we do get a small stipend for our appraisers. It takes 4 of them to get certified. So I'm sending Matthew, he's going to do the administrative portion of it. He's at his 6th class right now. Bron Gary is actually going to take the income approach to valuation. Audra Hernandez, new employee, she's actually doing the fundamentals of real estate appraisers. Dinesha Lucero, she's actually on her 3rd class. She did the income approach to valuation, the fundamentals of real estate properties. And I'm going to tell you one thing, this is not a walk in the park. A 4 whole semester in 1 week, and then you take a 4-hour exam. It's not an easy course. Also, we have Victoria Marin. She's actually a new employee. She's going to be taking the fundamentals of appraisal courses, and it will be held in Socorro, New Mexico. Thank you for Property Tax Division for doing this. Not every day I get information like this. We are doing our parcel fabric. We're actually doing our parcel corrections here in Grant County, thanks to the county manager and the commission, that it is quite expensive. We are working on it at this moment, and every other week we do meet with Bohannon Houston, and right now there are about 80 subdivisions where they're actually scanning, so we can actually correct all these issues that we have on our parcel mapping. There's a young lady by the name of Tracy Bernstead, okay? She's actually taking a class from UCLA, okay? And it's quite interesting because it has to do with the Intermediate Geographic Information System, that's GIS. Interesting to say that now we are planning and placing our land values that we don't have on this mapping, and we can actually do arrays on our values, do arrays by corner lot influences, and we're going to have 3D mapping real soon. So she just got her report card, and she actually had 40 hours. She ended up with an A+, and I call it an A++. Here was the comment on this young lady. The comment from UCLA GIS Certificate Program Instructor. Your work on our project is absolutely beautiful, Tracy. Your sense of cartographic design has led to create maps clear and easy to interpret. Despite being the geographic handwritten maps earlier of times. And guess what? Here in Grant County, we still do hand sketch maps on our Mylars. We're probably one of the only counties, but that's one of the best documents that we can have for archives. Given that this course largely focused on data management, creations, geo-reference, digitizing, overlaying, analysis, that work that was performed very nicely represents many concepts covering this class. I'm going to hold on to your map that you have submitted for an example done as the rastro georeferencing in particular. I'd like to congratulate you and your work through the course and certificate program so far. It has been a treat to see you work. Thank you very much. This is Nick Bernhardt, June 25th at 11:45 a.m. Thus far, Tracy has earned an A+ in all her classes within the last 2 classes, earning an A+, which only given by the discretion of the instructor. So I just want to give my GIS individual a very, very big hand on what she's doing. She's going to be taking some other classes. And once again, it's all about education. It's about knowing what we're doing in our office. And I just want to give a great big thanks to not only Tracy, but the rest of my office. And once the last week of second commissioners meeting in July, I have to give my, under state statutes, my report to the county commission, and we'll be talking about mapping, appraising, and we are going to disclose exactly on our certification. And once again, with Charlene, we'll have the yield control formula intact. So, thank you very much, and I do stand for any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Judge?
Good morning, everyone. Congratulations to you, Cobra Girls. I'm a Cobra Girl, so good job. Very good job. Commission and everyone, I'd just like to say I also attended the conference in Clovis, New Mexico. Very productive in the Probate Judges Affiliate. I had the honor of chairing that conference for probate judges throughout the state. My chairman was down with a little bit of an illness, so I had to chair that. I also got reappointed to the Education Committee to present ideas to the Judicial Education Center out of UNM. to give the mandatory training for probate judges next February, which is a mandatory training for all probate judges. We had a visitor in our affiliate, and he was Mr. Artie Pepin, who is the director of the, executive director of the Administrative Office of the Courts. And I think that most of you commissioners are aware of the legislation that came last session regarding probate judges, and possibly the idea that county commissioners would have the power to decide whether a probate judge exists in their county or not, in order to save money. If that probate judge is not having that workload, they want to create a division under the New Mexico courts to put probate under. And Mr. Pepin told us exactly what was the idea behind the legislation, and the probate judges were very, very glad that they had the opportunity to voice to them how important a probate judge is to the citizens of the county that they get elected in and they serve. We have the idea that probate judges will come and they will go. Most of the probate judges throughout the state are either retired or ready for retirement or have been retired for a long time. So who are we worried about? We're worried about our citizens. I want you, my commissioners and county manager, to understand probate judges have a very important position in the county. I've served in many capacities in Grant County. As a probate judge, I really feel totally in touch and in tune with the citizens. Why? Because it is at a point in their lives that they have lost a loved one and they need to take care of that final piece. When you want to put this court under New Mexico courts, magistrates and district judges, and they have a huge caseload. A probate judge has to be more compassionate. You have to allow the time. We do marriages, so we're at the beginning of a married couple's life, and then we're at the end of a family's situation when someone has lost a loved one. It's totally different. It's like the difference between a hospital and a funeral home. What do you do at a hospital? You take care of patients, you do surgeries, you draw blood work, you're doing important work, just like magistrates and district judges. The funeral home, patients die at the hospital. They can't take care of the people once they're gone. They have to give it to a specialty division, a funeral home, to take care of that piece. That's how I feel the difference between New Mexico courts, and for this court to go under that jurisdiction and to keep probate where it's at. Because probate deals with the citizens in your community where they're in a very delicate position. I meet with the same family 2 or 3 times. They're not in very good condition because they are hurting. They have family members. There might be a little bit of discussion, to say it lightly. I don't believe those courts have the time to do what a probate judge does. My office, since I started in January, has been super busy. I've seen families 2, 3, 4 times. I've met with them on Sundays. I've gone and done weddings wherever they need me to go. Once again, the courts, magistrates, district judges, I don't think they have time in their dockets to do what probate judges do. So we did have the pleasure to talk to Mr. Pepin, and I know that the managers and the commissioners that were at the conference got to hear from him as well. So I hope that this commission realizes probate judges throughout the state hold a very, very special place. Sure, we got to think of money, we got to think we got to save, but you know what? Customer service should be number one. And when someone dies in a family, it's totally different. And I really wouldn't like for any commission throughout the state that would have to say, well, you know what? We need to save $50,000, so probate judge in this county is going to be gone. Because you're going to take it away from the citizens. Customer service. That's why we get elected. We work for our citizens. We don't work for ourselves, our egos, our whatever personal agendas we have. We're elected by the people of that county, we work for them. So I just want to say, I hope this commission would never even consider something like that. And our probate judges affiliate is going to work hard. We're also going to work with Mr. Pepin and see what direction we can go. But I don't like to see probate judges go away. I'm going to be gone one day, but the citizens will remain, and they'll need that assistance in the office of the probate judge. And that's all I have, Commissioner. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. No report. Thank you. Moving on to the next item of the agenda, recognition of Cobury High School Lady Indians Softball State Championship. Ms. Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners of the Board. Whereas the Cobury High Lady Indian softball team from Cobury High School attended and participated in the New Mexico Activities Association state softball competition held in Albuquerque, New Mexico in May of 2019. And whereas the Lady Indians took district and had an overall record of 22 wins and 12 losses. And whereas the Lady Indian softball team earned their 11th state championship in the Class 3A category of the New Mexico Activities Association 2019 state softball tournament. And whereas the Lady Indian softball team is coached by head coach Randy Dominguez, Jessica Garcia, Juan Rodriguez, Gary Garcia, PJ Garcia, Bianca Rivera, Jenny Melendres, and manager Gabby Guerrero. The team members are Brianna Martinez, Ashley Esqueda, Ileana Silva, Aubrey Davila, Dices List, Deja Chavez, Zaineja Rodriguez, Alexis Polk, Destiny Avalos, Taya Gonzalez, Adriana Garcia, Emily Esqueda, and Emma Hellaria. Whereas the Lady Indians are to be commended for their athletic accomplishments and admirable perseverance to excellence, as well as their demonstration of dedication, sportsmanship, commitment, and passion for the sport of softball. And now therefore by the Grant County Commission hereby recognizes and congratulates the Cobury High School Lady Indian softball team for their outstanding athletic accomplishments.
I'd like to make a motion proclaiming today, 27th day of June 2019, Cobury High School Lady Indian Softball Proclamation or Day.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a comment. Okay. Those were two of the most exciting games I'd ever seen. The determination of the girls, the play, the team play, all the heroes that were there. When you needed that key hit, that key play, that key pitch, it was wonderful to see the girls play as a team and win as a team. And I was also so excited that the South did so well, and we've been doing well for quite a while. So Randy, congratulations, girls. That was a fantastic show.
Any other discussion, comments? Just like to thank you, ladies. Thank you. Great job. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. You guys come on up.
This is harder than it was.
Count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Over here.
Okay, moving on to public input section of this meeting. During this portion of our meeting, we welcome your suggestions and want to hear your concerns. This is not a question and answer period. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Any individual who'd like to discuss an item in more depth may request to be placed on a future agenda. Request forms are available in the county manager's office. Anyone for, yes, ma'am.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Rose. Good morning, all. My name is Kathy Lynn Pacheco. As a resident of the County of Grant, I feel it is my duty as a community member to share my personal opinion with each of you this morning. According to the American Hospital Association, the AHA, of which Gila Regional Medical Center, GRMC, is a member, a hospital board is accountable to the hospital and the community it serves by acting consistently with its bylaws and all applicable laws and regulations. In choosing between competing demands for scarce resources, the AHA suggests that board members should act as stewards to ensure the most efficient utilization of the hospital's facilities and resources. The fiduciary duties of any hospital board member are among the highest standard of conduct that the law, including the County of Grant GRMC bylaws of the Board of Trustees imposes. The AHA very clearly states that board members shall not place themselves in a position where their personal interests conflict with those of the hospital. The AHA also states very clearly that it is committed to supporting good governance in the changing healthcare environment by providing trustee-focused resources, tools, and education that foster high-performing hospital and health system boards. My young family and I have chosen to live and work in this community for 3.5 years now. I recruit licensed healthcare providers to this community, and they want stability in their leaders. In this short period of time, I have already seen with my own eyes the political power struggles that exist within a number of healthcare organizations. I have never understood why that behavior is tolerated or even encouraged by our community leaders. It is my hope that each one of you county commissioners pause to make the right choice regarding the individuals that you select to become GRMC board members. It is not right to choose any one person for any of these very important vacancies if a board member candidate has any sort of conflict of interest, like being a direct competitor to GRMC with their own private health care practice, or if a board member candidate has a personal vendetta against individuals working for GRMC, or if a board member candidate is someone to whom you may have, for whatever reason, sworn a personal allegiance. It is each of your responsibilities to select board member candidates to act as stewards for GRMC's facilities and resources, and who will each serve this community in a high-performing and ethical manner. The patients and employees of GRMC, many of whom are residents of the County of Grant, elected and depend upon each of you to serve them honestly and with good governance every day. These board member selections have very serious implications and also allow each of you the exciting chance to keep moving GRMC forward, not backward. Please make the right decision for the people of this community. That includes me and my family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Proceed. Did you need us to do this out now?
Anybody else for public input?
Conflict of interest.
Before I start, I have a copy of last year's news reporting on wildlife services. If you don't have the figures from last year, $82,158.95, I have it here in print and underlined so you can see it, just so we don't get misled on figures. Anybody need it? Ty, you need it? Here's one. Good morning. I'm Glenn Griffin. I am unpaid and have lived and worked in Grant County since 1976. In the past year, I've spoken to the Grant County Commissioners 13 times about terminating wildlife services in the past year. And I have had 2 dogs trapped in the past decade, not by APHIS. That is not the reason I'm here. I have underlined the cost of $82,000 in those 2 articles, so if there's any factual discrepancies, let me know. I'd like this issue to surface and get daylight so you know what we, the taxpayers, are paying for wildlife services. It is not $25,000, it is not $26,000, it is $82,000. I don't know what this year's budget is. I hope you'll mention that today when you make your decision. My commissioner, Billy Billings, represents the ranching and mining industry, and he writes that he hates socialism, but doesn't want to quit the $82,000 a year wildlife services because, as he wrote to me, it would be hard to get them back once we quit. At $450 a squirrel kill, I call this expensive socialism, and with no reporting on who and where the $82,000 is spent. I ran a business. I paid my gross receipt taxes to this county, and I would have canceled the wildlife killing due to lack of reporting and accountability. If you come a long ways from last year and 1 report in, 19 years, so we've had 4 reports so far, 1 listing that they're using M44s here in Grant County again. The Commissioner's own finance director can account for the $25,000 of the $82,000 coming from ranchers as a pass-through. There's no argument on that. I have met with commissioners and I'm very clear that it's coming from the ranchers. But the bulk of it, 2/3, is coming from us, the taxpayers. Do not be misled that it's just a mere good for $26,000. It's not true. Freeport used to sell a lot of copper to China. Google why Freeport is down. With layoffs impending at the mines, you might think the commissioners would want to be conservative with our taxpayer money. Money is so tight, the commissioners could not support tax abatement to help out our poorest property owners in paying their property taxes. We didn't have that money. Freeport pays 16% of what the rest of us property owners pay on our property. When the mine shut down producing copper and untaxed gold and silver, they paid no property taxes. I'd like that deal on when my household income goes down too. Wait until Freeport declares bankruptcy, just like ASARCO did in El Paso in 2007. That's pretty recent history. We were left with 25,000 acres of toxically heavy metal polluted acres to clean up, and thanks to pro-corporate voting at February's Trump Rally Commission meeting, we the taxpayers will get to fund the cleanup. Google why Freeport is down. That's all you got to put in and you'll have 50 reasons why Freeport is down. The Strong Saturday article in the Daily Press by reporter Jeffrey Plant about Hanover Fierro's water problems shows just how wrong this commission has been in supporting the diversion over a regional water system. 30 homes without water. I'll make a prediction today. It will be 2 business-minded votes against wildlife services to 3 votes for continued taxpayer-funded socialism for the ranchers. And so we will get to subsidize ranchers yet again. I believe my commission district needs a business-minded person, not a rancher who says he hates socialism, but votes for taxpayer-funded socialism. Stop wildlife services today, right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and elected officials. I'm Athena Wolf. I'm also here to speak to the killing of our native species to be replaced by cattle. The bugling elk am I, the running wolf am I, the far-seeing eagle am I, the shy deer am I, the cautious mountain lion am I, the sleeping bear am I, the yipping coyote am I, the joyous bee am I. Humanity must live in harmony with respect for nature, or we will perish. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Ty Bays, and I'm representing the Grant County Cattle Growers today. We're an organization that has just under 100 members here in Grant County, and that's representing family ranching units. I'm here to ask you to support the contract with USDA Agriculture, Animal and Plant Services. This is a vital organization. Admittingly, it primarily serves the ranching community in that they help us, assist us in managing predators. But I'd like to point out that this service is also available to and utilized by the entire community, the entire county. These folks are highly trained. They are after targeted animals. And all their work and methods are backed by scientific research. I know there's some talk about asking wildlife services to remove their lethal control methods. Well, I equate that to asking our sheriff to fight crime here in Grant County, but not use lethal force. I don't think that's even fair. You know, and there's been a lot of talk with the previous 2 speakers about just killing. That's not all that wildlife services do. That is the last resort. They come in, they help us manage predators, they help residents manage birds, squirrels, you name it, any wildlife issue. They are professional, they are highly trained, and I've asked, one time I asked Brandon Jones, the employee, I said, hey, I'm seeing a lot of coyotes. His comment was, well, are they killing them? I said, well, no, but I'm worried about it. He said, well, then we don't want to do anything. I said, well, why? He said, well, we take a coyote out, another coyote's going to move into that territory, and he may be a killer. You know, that's the kind of advice we're getting from these folks. If we don't have him, if we don't have this service, people are going to take matters into their own hands, and that includes residents. I mean, you know, I saw some talk about woodpeckers eating up the fire station up there on LS Mesa. Or a homeowner. They may take care of it. That's a protected species. You have to have a permit. They do not come and work on predators just at will. You have to have damage, and they come out and confirm it before they take any action. I can tell you, I can live with the bears and the lions and the coyotes, but I can tell you when a bear goes to killing, they don't stop until it rains, and this is the time of year we typically have trouble. Forage conditions get tough, and they go to eating on calves, and as our assessor will be able to confirm, we pay property taxes on those livestock. Now, some of you may say, well, it's not very much. Well, it's a lot to me, and when you take one of those animals out, you're taking one out of the tax base. And, you know, this is a vital service. They help all county residents. It's not just about killing, it's about wildlife management. And wildlife management is no different than you calling the bug sprayer to come in your home. You know, we can capture the bugs and the mice and relocate them. That really doesn't work. I remember a study years ago where they captured mountain lions up in the San Juan Mountains and hauled them to the Oregon Mountains, trying to reestablish a population down there. Some of those mountain lions went back to the San Juans in a matter of 6 months. You know, things don't work that easy. You can't take a murderer off the street and haul him to Deming. He's going to come back. I mean, sometimes we have to take some hard, cold measures to manage these wildlife. This service also helps us manage our big game species. If you know, when predator populations get too high, they go to eating up native wild game and then go utilizing our livestock. That hurts the sportsmen too. So this is a good service. Brandon Jones is a real professional, and I urge you to sign this contract. He's the professional. Let him run the department as he's trained, and he's trained by scientific research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandon Jones, and I work for the USDA Wildlife Services. I've been a wildlife specialist in Grant County for the last 25 years. And in the last year, I've been asking myself if this program is still worth fighting for. In my 25 years of service, I've addressed just about every type of wildlife complaint you can imagine, from a gentleman getting killed by a mountain lion to chipmunks eating wires in vehicles. I've came to the conclusion that not only do I owe it to the residents of Grant County that I serve, but also just as important, I owe it to our wildlife. I know you might be asking yourself if you actually heard me right, because you only have heard about the agency killing wildlife. Here are a few examples I go through on a daily basis. It is not uncommon for a cooperator to call It is not uncommon for a cooperator to call saying he has had problems with a calf being killed by lions or coyotes and maybe bears. After my investigation, go out and find out if the calf has been killed by toxic weeds, could be pneumonia, quite often in the summertime lightning. In one instance, I had a cooperator in Hidalgo County call with 13 heifers he thought had been killed by a mountain lion. During my investigation, I cut the stomachs open and found that they all had pieces of plastic bags in them. To make a long story short, the cattle had gotten into some hidden bundles of marijuana and fed on them. The results were the cattle died from plastic bags. Now, I'm pretty sure that without the evidence I presented to this gentleman, our wildlife would have taken the rap for this and paid a price. Quite often we get calls on horses being reported attacked by lions and bears. A lot of the time the horse just got into some wire or ran through a fence by dogs. On some occasion the horse owner's dogs have been the problem. If you have to ask, if wildlife services were no longer available, will our wildlife have to pay a price? I often get calls on predators reportedly killing chickens and fowl. I have found on multiple occasions it's the owner's pets doing the damage. We had one cooperator that was certain her pet was not the culprit. We placed a motion camera and got a picture of her pet with a chicken in its mouth the next morning. So I guess what I'm saying, not only can wildlife cause damage, but so can our domestic pets, and natural causes can also occur. Without wildlife services to assist and determine what the cause is, lending advice and targeting the species, the specific animal causing the damage, our livestock producers, homeowners, businesses, landowners are only going to accept so much loss to their resources and property before they take matters into their own hands, which can lead to illegal poisoning and shooting of our wildlife. and resources that may have nothing to do with the circumstances. Wildlife Services also responds to human health and safety. For example, bear, lion, coyotes in people's backyards, to bats and attics. We give advice on preventing problems, to loaning out live cage, traps, and assisting in removal. For example, on one occasion I had a lady call saying she had a lion screaming on the hillside from her backyard. Upon investigation, finding out it was just a house cat in heat. I have to ask myself, if Wildlife Services weren't available, would Wildlife have to pay the price? Right now I have a lady that has an estimated $30,000 in damage to her house by woodpeckers. Her neighbor offered to shoot them for her. Keep in mind, this is a protected species. We're in the process of obtaining permits from the Department of Fish and Wildlife the correct and legal way. I have to wonder how many law-abiding citizens would have to choose between their home, businesses, and livelihood, or break the law and take their chances. In my opinion, your residents of Grant County shouldn't have to choose. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is minutes.
Chair, I move we approve the minutes of the June 11 work session and the June 13 regular meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion? Second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to financial reports, consideration of June 20th, 2019 expenditure report.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the June 20th, 2019 expenditure report.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Under new business, going into item E, consideration of GRMC Board of Trustees applicants. And I guess this was left on the agenda more for the sake of discussion, correct?
So, Mr. Chair, I think the only thing that we did not discuss on Tuesday that we may want to take up today are the questions that we're going to ask the trustee applicants. I placed at your place this morning a copy of the questions that we asked last year, and as a starting point for discussion. I will tell you that I did have one comment about the questions, and that was that that none of the 5 questions that we asked last year included any questions specifically about healthcare experience.
And just for context, the applicants last year had these questions in advance, and they were asked to address them in a statement. So we didn't sit here and ask them one and have them reply. They were supposed to answer them in their statements. I assume we would do the same this year for the sake of efficiency.
And I think for clarification, to follow on to what Commissioner Brown says, I did, Bernadette was kind enough to send me the whole package of emails and correspondence that went out to the trustee candidates last year. And we did say in that information that we sent to them that they had to answer all 5 questions.
So, turning to your point about healthcare experience, they've been asked to give us their CVs or their resumes, and I think we can see in there relevant healthcare experience, and I think it's on them to communicate that to us. They can add anything they want to their statement as long as they stay within the time frame. I don't personally feel we need to add a question about healthcare experience.
Commissioner, I think that you've already addressed it in the question about the role they plan to play. Because I had that question too, and knowing that there are a lot of fundamental roles that are needed in the trustees, that probably no one person can fill all those roles. So I think you've addressed it.
I would agree, knowing that they can add whatever they want and spend as little time as they want answering these questions
So, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we accept these 5 questions as written as the questions that we use for the interview process for candidates.
Okay,
I would probably want to add to that motion, giving them our calendar that we had.
I'd like to talk about that after we're through with the questions.
We already
Oh,
we sent the calendar to the candidates per your discussion on Tuesday. They already have this information.
okay.
But I think we're gonna talk about something different.
yeah, we'll talk about some different.
So we need a second to go into
I'll second
discussion,
that.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the sake of discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Edwards and a second by Commissioner Billy. Discussion?
This is specifically on the 5 questions that are here before us.
Yes.
I'm ready to vote.
My next question.
Okay, so, if we want to have further discussion on the calendar, then do I need to amend my motion?
No, we can.
Okay.
It's all within the same agenda item.
Okay.
You can have multiple motions.
Okay.
Right. So, okay, we have first, a second, any further discussion on the motion on the 5 questions here? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried on the 5 questions. So we need to have a little bit more discussion on,
Yes, Mr. Chair, so I have a couple of things for discussion, and to see what the pleasure of the board is. So we have, looking at the calendar, we've asked the candidates to come to a special meeting at 9 a.m. on Thursday, July 18th. And it just crossed my mind that if ever we were going to, we've talked about having evening community meetings, if ever we were going to have an evening meeting where the community could be involved, it might be this meeting, so that working people, I'm specifically thinking about a lot of them in the medical field, could attend, hear what the potential trustee candidates, these trustee candidates have to say, and just like the commission to consider that. You may have ideas for or against making that an evening meeting.
Actually, I'm in full support of that. I do agree that if ever there was a time that the community might want to be present for the discussion of the commission on a topic, that this is probably one of those top issues. I'm in favor of doing that. With apologies to the candidates for not thinking about this on Tuesday.
Mr. Billy, are you talking about the Thursday meeting?
Yes, the July 18th meeting,
Yes.
where the candidates would come and give their statements. And
that's a special meeting, correct?
yes,
July 18th, a special meeting, changing the time to the evening.
yes.
Am I correct in remembering, I'm embarrassed to ask this out loud actually, but we did change the Open Meetings Act to have public input at special meetings, is that correct?
We did. They're only not allowed at emergency meetings, or if it's determined that we can't allow it by the chair.
Correct.
So, refresh my memory, which is really poor. Seemed like last time we did this, we took a break. Was it a 30-minute break between the time we heard from the candidates and the time we made a decision?
We did do that.
And the public was there, and I think we mingled with the public.
This time we have a week break.
We have a week break.
Oh, okay.
Because vote won't take place until July 25th.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So if any member of the public who attended, provided that we rescheduled that meeting for 5 p.m. on the 18th, any member of the public that wished to speak with the commissioner about anything they heard would have a week to do so, and plus we would have a week to call people or consider what we had heard.
I have a comment, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to bring it up. But, you know, what we're saying is one physician and 2 regular members. Now, the first part of my question is that, you know, policy written in stone somewhere? Or are we,
I think this was addressed on Tuesday, and I concur completely with what Commissioner Edwards said at that point. While we refer to it as a physician slot, there's nothing in the Hospital Funding Act that requires that to be a physician. Nor is there even anything in the hospital bylaws that requires it to be a physician. The hospital bylaws use the word preferably.
okay, the second part of my question is, can a candidate be an employee of the hospital? Because what I'm looking at is maybe not a direct employee, but a part of a satellite operation.
So, again, I have read the Hospital Funding Act with that in mind, and I saw no constraint there on employees. Now, it may be that the hospital has a different feeling. I don't know that we've received an official position from the hospital.
And from what
I heard a whisper.
Go ahead.
We haven't received any official statement from the hospital, and like you stated on Tuesday, we have never even ratified their bylaws, and Abby may want to interject here, but I mean, it does say preferably, so I think you have the flexibility to appoint as you see fit.
And the way I'm taking on that is, you know, what they have is a suggestion for us. I mean, that's the best way I can summarize it. So, and I know I see that 1 physician and 2 regular members, but from what I'm seeing and what I've heard and seen, it's basically they're just suggestions to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay,
So, while we're talking about that, does this commission want to decide now if we want to do the 1 physician and 2 regular members, or if we want to leave it open to, because the Hospital Funding Act is clear, it says, I think, well, it's been a long time, but I think it says 5, 7, or 9. And that's basically about what it says, the requirement, yeah.
I think that, I mean, I know where you're headed, but I really think that we need to really look, listen to what these candidates have to say, and once we do the ranking, and then we could probably decide on which direction we want to go and not lock ourselves into it right now. That would be my suggestion.
well, and to add to that, I would just say that, you know, we should have the freedom to pick the 3 candidates that we think are best suited, regardless of what their standings are.
I agree with both of those things. If your suggestion were that we develop our own internal list of the experiences and specialties of the members of the board that we appoint, that's a good idea. I wouldn't want to limit that to just the question of how many physicians, right? I'm also interested in people with financial expertise, people with healthcare industry expertise, whether they're physicians or not, people with good experience on boards that manage $90 million budgets, right? There's a range of specialties that I would like to see, only some of which are medical. So I have no interest in defining just the question of physicians.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask the county attorney, do you have anything to add to that?
Could you be more specific?
Sorry, are we heading the right, you don't have any caution for us? I just.
I'm not seeing the legal issues. I think you're bound by the Hospital Funding Act. I think you should probably talk with the Board of Trustees about potential conflicts and why they make their suggestions, recommendations to you all.
Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
so-
I'm not finding...
As you're aware, have we gotten any official,
Nobody has contacted me.
from, anything official from the Board of Trustees? Okay, that's what I thought.
No, I want to add a thought about conflict of interest. The hospital board is something like the lodger's tax board in my mind. It's inherently full of conflicts of interest. All of us have, either ourselves or in our families, needed the hospital's services. That's the most basic level of conflict. Already when you appoint physicians, you're appointing people who usually have privileges, right, to do surgeries at the hospital. They have a vested interest in certain hospital decisions. The hospitalist who's currently on the board is extremely embedded in the hospital. The fact that she happens to work for a contract agency that provides hospitalists is, I think, just a coincidence of time. Hospitalists in the past have been direct employees, and the difference between a direct employee and a contractor who's there 100% of her time is minimal. It's really splitting hairs. I would basically argue that she already is an employee of the hospital for the same reasons that we would be concerned about a different person being an employee. I don't see those issues as excluding any of the candidates. To me, we already deal with conflicts all the time.
And I would just say that Harry stole the words right out of my mouth. Have been thinking about this a lot with conflict, and I concur with Commissioner Brown's comments.
I agree. We have, every potential candidate has a different level of conflict.
I just want to state that the candidates that we have, and I feel any one of them could be a good trustee. But I think that the issues, the importance of the hospital is so great that we just need to make what we think is the best decision, and let that not be clouded by restrictions. So if it's okay for us to choose the best candidate, and I have not made up my mind, and I think we've all done our due diligence on looking at the potential trustees, going through the packets and all that, and I just want to make the best decision, I say not clouded by any restrictions. And I think we've got our answer there, that what we need to follow is the Hospital Funding Act.
And I agree with all you commissioners on that also.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add one more thing. I will have, and I think we'll all have our own personal biases about what is a conflict beyond the point. The speaker earlier mentioned several things about that might be potential conflicts. I don't think we need to limit those as a board, but individually we might say, that person, this and that and the other. I won't make an example, but I won't be specific in my example. But, personally, I might think, that is a region, and we'll make decisions based on that, and hopefully not political.
There are other laws that affect not necessarily you all, but they affect the person that holds the position on the board, that board, or any other governmental or quasi-governmental board. My experience in the past with the Board of Trustees is that if they disagree with you, they will tell you. And if they don't, they'll let it be. So, worst case scenario here, you figure out that, you've chosen someone and maybe there is some overwhelming conflict or incompatibility. The incompatibility issue is not jumping out at me right now. But they will communicate with you. They will probably have their attorney look at it. In the end, if you figure out this was not a good choice, you just go back and reappoint someone else that would fit better. So does that...
You do?
Is that helpful?
Yes. You just go back and reappoint?
Yes.
Once we've appointed a trustee,
They just step down. If it's concluded that perhaps the position is
unlawful, that would be a situation.
Okay.
And they are
So
required to
they would
step
have to
down.
be convinced of that. It'd be quite a process, I would think.
In the past, it was not.
Okay.
We appointed someone, the commissioners appointed someone, and the board of trustees disagreed. They let us know that. We responded. We kind of went back and forth. I vaguely recall the agent's office having an opinion on it as well. Yes, that was the case. And in the end, the person just stepped down based on the opinions, that issue.
No, the Attorney General's office, yeah.
Yes.
Right, okay.
It's not, it's fixable.
Thank you for that.
One more comment there. Go ahead. Well, many of our constituents think that the commission has some controlling interest into the hospital board. And we all know that we have no input into any decisions at the hospital. Since I've been here, we have not even been asked an opinion. So our input into that hospital board will be through the trustees that we appoint. That's why I think it's so inherent that we try to come to consensus and pick the best candidates, because that is all that we're going to get, is whoever we appoint.
So I concur with Commissioner Salas' comments. I also want to just bring up, so the person who spoke in public input, I really appreciate her coming before us this morning and sharing her concerns or thoughts about the appointment. She mentioned 4 things: private competitor, a vendetta, conflict of interest, or personal allegiance. And I think one I want to address, the private competitor, is I'm not really sure that I understand the concept of a private competitor. I mean, I get, in other things, but in this particular case, I can't think of a provider in this community that does not need the hospital. And so even though there may be competition in terms of there is a finite number of patients and those sorts of things, there is no practitioner that I am aware of in this community that does not need that hospital in some manner. And so, as someone said earlier, I think it is incumbent upon us to remember that the hospital serves everyone in the community and that we have to act as partners in this. I do understand the idea of vendetta, and I think there has been, I have certainly heard conversation in the public in a multitude of ways about revenge or vendetta, or making decisions based on the Juniper process and all of the different kinds of things that came up during that process. And I would hope that, and I think I'm not going to make any specific examples, but I think that there is fault at every level. If fault isn't quite the right word, but there are issues at every level in regards to this. And I'm certainly confident in my fellow commissioners that that would not be something that we would engage in. And I think we've already addressed the conflict of interest issue. And then I just want to speak for a minute about personal allegiance. I think that is a very subjective term. I do think that we all have personal allegiances to people. It's inherent in our nature as human beings. I also have full confidence that my fellow commissioners will not go down that path in our appointments. But one thing I do want to point out is that sometimes personal allegiance is informative in terms of relationships with people that inform us on how a person will act in a position such as the Board of Trustees. And I do think it's appropriate to have conversation about what we know about people and their performance in the past that will impact our decisions in appointing trustees.
So, any other comments on that? Before we forget, on the, I believe it was the July 18th meeting, what are the wishes as far as the commissioners and a time for a meeting, an evening meeting?
Could we have that meeting here at 6:00 p.m.?
That's what I was going to ask.
I'm in favor of that.
That would cause me to miss a usual monthly meeting, but I can handle that.
Is there a better time?
No, 6 is, if it's at 5, I might make my 6:30 meeting, but I probably wouldn't.
I wouldn't count on it.
And so 6 is fine.
6 o'clock, so then from what I'm hearing, on the Thursday, July 18th special meeting, we'd like to move that to an evening meeting.
I could put that in the form of a motion, or is that necessary?
Mr. Chair, excuse me,
Sure.
Commissioner Billings. So there are 4 people in the audience who are candidates. Are all 4 of you available at 6 o'clock on the 18th rather than 9 o'clock in the morning?
Nod, thumbs up, thumbs up.
Great, thank you. So at least 4 of them are available.
The one thing I would like to add is that we do probably a little bit more advertising so that people are fully aware. I would hate to have a 6 o'clock meeting with only the candidates. I really want the input from the public because certainly that will probably might sway our decisions in one way or the other.
So one thing I think we could do in terms of that, and I think when we were talking on Tuesday about how the county got the word out on the other 3 boards that we have no applicants for, and Charlene gave us a list of the ways that the county gets the word out, and so I think that's great. I think we should do all of those things that you enumerated. I think we also talked about whether commissioners would be able to pass that on through Facebook. I'm not a Facebook user. I don't really understand how that works, but we should do that. And I think the other thing we should do is we should ask the hospital through the chair of the Board of Trustees to engage their Doug Oaks and Kathy Lynn Pacheco and whoever else is marketing and public relations to engage in that process as well.
Yes.
Because they would have the potential, I think, to reach people that we cannot. And so we should do that.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, so, Steve, sorry.
I don't personally think we need to actually have a motion and a vote on the time of the meeting. I think we just instruct the staff.
All right.
And now I'm curious, are you intending to schedule a public comment before or after the candidate statements?
It's a good question.
My inclination would be after. That gives the public a chance to hear what they have to say before the public makes statements that might
Yeah, I think that
be
would
informed
be
about
better.
it.
Well, it would probably be the same at the July 25th meeting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do you like what?
At the
When
July
we-
25th meeting.
when we narrow to
That
3.
public comment. Well, we would want to have, so at the July 25th meeting, we would have already heard the interviews and all the public comment, and what our job then to do is to appoint, and so we would want to hear public comment then before we appoint it.
Yes, certainly.
And on your comment, I agree with it, and then I sort of look at it is listening to the public as to what they feel they should have as a Board of Trustee member, and them talking to us and letting us know when the candidates come up for their interview and speak. I think that would have given us, hey, this is what the public's looking at, this is what they feel, and this is what they're presenting. So it can go both ways. I mean, that's probably not
It's not necessarily a bad idea to give the candidates an opportunity to address the public's concerns directly. I mean, for example, if you were a candidate and you answered all 5 of these questions a certain way, but there was a trend in public comment that you might want to address, and throw your 5 questions, well, you don't want to throw them, you don't want them to throw them out, but, you may want to respond in a different way. So I actually think that at some level, that might be almost a better way to evaluate the candidate's, ability to think about what the public wants and respond to that on the spot. Just a thought.
I'm indifferent. Good points.
I'm me too, I mean, whatever. I just threw that out.
I thought you were going to get to make the call.
So, your idea or recommendation was to have...
First the statements in the public.
Then the public.
I recognize there are very good arguments both ways. I'm glad we had the discussion and I don't need to push it.
I'm fine with the chair deciding unless you have something.
You're the man with the
No pressure.
Do I have? So I think we'll just follow Commissioner Brown's recommendation. I mean, either way, I think at the end we'll get what we were asking for. So we'll have the candidates present and then we'll have a look and vote. I think that would work also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, people are going to lose patience with me, Mr. Chair, but I've got another item relative to this. So we have 11 highly qualified candidates. I was really impressed with that. We had 13 before, but I really didn't expect the quality of the 11 candidates that we got. So our idea as a commission is to narrow the field, so to speak, so that at this special meeting, there will be 6 speaking. So as I go over the calendar, the way we're going to narrow the field is basically individually without discussion, and I'm back to what Commissioner Salas said at the meeting on Tuesday. So my question to the board is, do you want to narrow the field and eliminate basically 5 candidates without any discussion from the commission? We would get those, we would give our scoring to Bernadette. That would be an individual thing. Or does the commission, and the logistics of it I haven't worked out in my mind, and that's why it's complicated. So I'd just like to have a quick discussion on hear what you want to say about that. Did I make sense, or did I step too late last night?
You're thinking about, rather than submitting our individual rankings to Bernadette on the 8th, that we would actually have some discussion on the 9th.
On the 9th.
After we've had time to individually think about it and talk to people, that sort of thing. So then we would have the discussion on the 9th and narrow it in the meeting?
Yeah, and that was my plan, yeah. That's an idea. I don't know if it's my plan.
And going along with you, Commissioner Billy, that's what I thought also. And then looking at this, it's not, because I really wanted to hear from all the candidates.
So hear from them in front of the board? Yeah, because that's not part of the proposal.
Nothing would preclude us from, in fact, I've been contacted by some here in the audience, I just haven't got back to them yet, and there's some others I want to talk to for sure, as an individual. But my question is, do we want, before we eliminate 5 of the 11, do we want to have a discussion here, or are we ready to just go ahead and...
So one thing, taking into consideration what you've said and what you're saying, is that, one way to deal with this would be to do the narrowing in the meeting, and potential candidates that wanted to speak to the board would be able to do so for the same amount of time in public input on that Tuesday.
Well, I sort of want to amend my thought. I at least want to have the discussion, so that, I look at, it's so hard to make a decision when we don't have a quorum, we can only speak to one, get their feelings. So, I spoke with Commissioner Edwards, so, and we talked about things, but I don't know how Commissioner Brown feels, and I know that he has different views on things, and you're awesome, Commissioner Bill, because you've been through this process before. So you have a little bit more expertise than we do, but, something that you say might sway I might have somebody on the fence, and something you say might say, no, maybe that's the better candidate, So.
And you anticipate having that discussion in an open meeting on Tuesday, a special meeting?
Well, I wish we could do it.
It's the work session.
It's a special meeting for this purpose. We need it to be a special meeting because we're going to take an action to narrow the field.
That's correct.
I would like to put in a pitch for not being flaky. And we've put out this schedule. We've decided this is what we're going to do. Unless there was some really overwhelming reason that this isn't going to work, I would encourage us to stick with what we've decided. And I'm not hearing an overwhelming reason. I understand the decision is a difficult one. There's no doubt about it. It will be difficult enough to go from 6 to 3. Right? That to me is really the more important choice. I believe that we could all cut the field in half reasonably well without a long discussion.
And my team would be, Ms. Coleman, she's about to bang her head on it.
Yeah.
We need to give her some type of direction there and stay with it.
I'm good with that. I think I withdraw I think I've heard enough discussion. Thank you.
I'll follow you guys.
So the decision that we have made then is that we are going to meet at 6 p.m. on the 18th, and we are going to publicize that within all of our ways of publicizing it, and we're going to tax Kevin with being Mr. Communicator, and then we're going to ask the hospital to do the same. Correct?
So that's the only change.
Yes, that's the only change that...
Mr. Chair, the only other question I have is, that was added, and I understand why Bernadette added it, or whoever added it. 1 physician and 2 regular members. I just feel like we're obligated to do with what we've said and no changes. I feel like we're obligated to stay with that. If we're not, I think now's the time to cross that off and make sure that...
I agree with you. I think the both of the 1 and the 2 need to be deleted, and we can
just put 3.
Yeah, just leave it 6 and select 3. I agree.
I would even be fine, for consistency's sake, to say 3 members come up, preferably 1 a physician, something like that, to acknowledge that this is what the bylaws say, and at the same time to acknowledge that we're not bound by them. Would that work for you?
That would work. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Did we confuse you anymore further? So, for my sake, the meeting on the 18th will be at 6 p.m. That's a special meeting with public input, correct? And the other changes that are coming out is a bold to include what you had mentioned, right? Okay. Oh, is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have anything else on this?
Can we just decide that the 8 people not selected have to serve on the lodger's tax true cost advisory board?
Sure. So, excuse me, if we can move on to the next item, we can be good. So my understanding is we were going to table items F, G, and H, correct?
Yes, can we table those to the second meeting in July?
Second meeting in July? Okay. So I guess I'll make a motion under, for new business under item F, consideration of lodgers tax advisory board applicants. Item G, consideration of shooting range advisory board applicants. And H, consideration of two cost advisory boards, that they be tabled to the second regular meeting in July. Correct.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the agreements. Item I, consideration of agreement number A-19-26.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve agreement A-19-26.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item J, consideration of agreement number A-19-27.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve agreement A-19-27.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item K, consideration of agreement number A-19-28.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agreement number A-19-28.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item L, consideration of agreement number 8-19-29.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we approve, or I move we approve agreement A-19-29.
Second. Now I would like to offer an amendment to the agreement. So, when you proceed to that discussion, do you all have the agreement open? No.
Could you guide us where the amendment is?
Sure. It'll be on page 3, under section 4, stipulations and restrictions.
Okay, I'm having a hard time finding that. Section 3?
Page 3.
Page 3, section 4.
Oh, okay, section 4, got it. Okay.
And I want to start by commending Mr. Jones for coming up and speaking to us. I appreciate that. I know that's a challenge to do that. And I also appreciated the stories. They were very helpful. It's remarkable how helpful it is to talk to people. We think that we each know each other's experiences, and we don't until we communicate. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate that your effort is to use lethal methods as a last resort. I commend you for that. It is my belief that certain lethal methods are unacceptable, and others may be acceptable. And I'm not ready to say none are acceptable, partly because you've convinced me that having professionals do it is better than the alternative. Nevertheless, you mentioned that indiscriminate killing can lead to new members of a population moving in and not having the same social structure, and in fact making depredations worse. I believe that the M44 canisters that are used are highly susceptible to that exact thing happening, and I think they represent a risk to our population, both people and pets, that is too great. On Tuesday, I'm not sure, yeah, you were here. You heard my story about search and rescue teams having to take extra care because there were M44 canisters in the area that was being searched on 2 different events in the same month. So I would like to add to the second sentence, which currently reads, techniques will be environmentally sound, safe, and selective, the following clause, comma, and will not include the use of cyanide canisters or leg hold traps. And I've added leg hold traps because I believe them to be an unusually cruel, unnecessary form of trapping. So this would leave considerable discretion in the hands of professionals like Mr. Jones to use other methods. It would ban the worst, from my perspective, the worst of the techniques that's currently being used.
I'd like to speak to that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Glenn.
I'm thinking about several things, but one thing that comes to mind is the typhus epidemic in the city of Los Angeles, where you have city employees and homeless population and officers coming down with a disease that should have been eradicated hundreds of years ago. We have the technology and the capability to do that. And I think that's because well-meaning policymakers have taken away essential tools from animal control experts there who could do this. Mary Alice will be glad to know we've had this discussion. I got my 3rd mouse out of my wife's closet last night, and it was a little bit brutal if you've got a tender heart for mice. Rhonda couldn't do it herself in the middle of the night. She heard it in there and woke me up, and I smashed the mouse's head, and it's dead. It's a little bit brutal. I understand that people have a tender heart for animals, and my grandmother taught me that too. But some animals do a lot of damage. There's some bad actors, just like there's some human bad actors. And I wouldn't want to limit any tool that a trained professional has to go after those. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask any more questions of Mr. Jones, but I think my guess is that he very seldom uses leg hold traps, and I don't know about the M44 canisters, but is that okay if I ask him that question?
I have no objection.
And in addition to that, I need more of an understanding what an M44 canister is. I know what cyanide is, but I don't know how they're placed, how they're triggered, how it's dispensed.
We could add that to the question?
Yes, please.
Could you come forward and answer that?
Okay.
I'll respond.
No, oh yeah, okay, whatever.
I would say, if somebody else has experience with it, I'd like to hear from them as well.
The M44 unit is kind of like has a sodium cyanide capsule of powder. And you place it in the ground, and a coyote comes and pulls up on it, has a plunger that pops the cyanide powder into its mouth. And that's pretty much the sum of it.
What attracts a coyote? Is there a scent?
Yeah, you put some bait on it. Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, what human damage has ever been caused by this? Mr. Brown mentioned the need to use...
I don't know of any. I know there was a kid in some other state that kicked one or something, and...
His dog, actually.
Oh, his dog, yes, correct.
And he got poisoned too.
I don't know how he would have got poisoned. I'm not here to debate, so...
Okay.
I had some clarifying questions also. Now that you're up here. I also want to acknowledge how difficult it can be to come up to the podium and talk to us and the public, and I thank you very much for doing that. I also appreciated most of what Mr. Price had to say on Tuesday. There were a couple things that were a little eye-opening for me, but I do agree that talking about this is the 3rd time that I've had to talk about this and think about approving it or not. And I really appreciate the conversation that we've had this time about this. I've learned a bunch of stuff about it, and I've thought about things that I never thought about before. such as the woodpecker issue, things like that. So I really, really appreciate it. Gives a lot more context. My clarifying questions are, and I have several of them. So the first one is on the M44 cyanide thing. So it's a canister that you put in the ground.
Correct.
That has the cyanide in it. There's bait, and so any creature that's attracted to that bait would potentially set off that trap or whatever you want to call it. Correct. So it wouldn't just any canine would be attracted to
It is
that bait.
possible, yes, correct.
Okay. How big is this thing? And then I think secondarily to that, so I'm hearing Commissioner Brown talk about search and rescue and, that you have to watch out for and that sort of thing. So first thing is it visible to humans? How would a human know that it was there?
We put up signs on all the gates and ground signs by each unit.
So there would be a ground sign that I could see
Correct.
warning me about.
Within 15 feet of each
Within
unit.
15 feet, okay. And then,
You have to have a light source. We were searching at night, so it was,
understood, yeah.
that was some of the
So
concern.
at all gates, there'll be a gate sign saying there'll be the units in the area.
So, my second question about this is, so I got distracted and it just fell out of my head. All right, so I'm going to go on because it will come back to me as we talk about this. How do you determine when you set those traps? What else have you done? Are there procedures that you would do first before setting that type of trap?
Normally, we get a call from the livestock owner and go assess the situation, make sure coyotes did kill the livestock, look around, make sure there's no residents within, I do about a mile, and go from there normally.
And how would a search and rescue team know that those were out there in the dark?
Well, any of the gates they go through, they would be notified.
So they would know by the gate, but
They would know by the gate.
necessarily be able to see the sign on the ground.
It's a pretty visible sign on the ground.
Okay.
It sticks up and it's, pretty visible.
And it's probably something we could get quick training on.
Correct.
And the fact is, we did know in both of these instances that there were canisters out there, whether that was because of the sign on the gate or because the incident commander did a good job of interviewing property owners, I'm not sure.
Yes, and we don't place them on any county roads. We place them so far from each county road. Waters, 200 feet from waters. So we take, normally I try to keep them behind lock gates so we don't have any issues. Sometimes we have to get outside of that, but that's normally what I do.
Could you tell us the significance of leg hold traps and how often you use those, and also the significance of the M44 canisters as tools in your toolbox to do your job?
On the leg hold traps, I very rarely use them, just because they're so time consuming.
We get to start them all the time.
It takes a lot of time. So, and I've got a county and a half I have to respond to, so it just...
If you did have to use that, though...
They're very valuable when it comes down to need them. Correct. Yes. So, as far as them 44s, pretty valuable. I have hardly any non-take of animals that I don't want on the M44s. Versus traps, you tend to get more the non-targets in traps. Traps you can usually let them out of. The M44s, it will be dead. But, seems like it's a lot less on the side, on the M44s.
Thanks.
Thank you.
May I respond with facts, please? Would that be acceptable?
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the chance to rebut. The incident with the boy and the dog was in 2017, incident in Pocatello, Idaho, which a teenage boy was injured and his family dog killed when they triggered an M44 poison dispenser near their home. What that means is when the coyote or the dog is killed, birds of prey such as our raptors or hawks or eagles will feast upon that coyote. They too will die from the cyanide. Any other critter that's there is going to die. The question of we never get a dog. 43 dogs have been killed by M44s between 2010 and 2016. So that is not a true statement. 43 dogs, they're brought in by the stink bait. They can't help it. I'll answer any other questions that you may want to ask.
Any questions?
Thank you.
So I need to think, after 2.5 years of this, I know where we're at. So we have a motion and a second, and then we have an amendment on the floor, right?
Well, to propose an amendment, we would need an alteration of the motion or withdrawal of it. Gotcha.
I'd be reluctant to withdraw my motion. I think that these are necessary tools. Mr. Griffin has brought up potential injury to someone in some time ago.
2017.
Our sheriff's department and various others of you might have arrived here in a vehicle today. My mother was killed 20 years ago in an automobile accident, but my family didn't stop driving cars. It's a necessary tool in our toolbox to do our job, and I'm guessing some of the other ones of you got here too. So probably if we even had another accident in the family, most of us are going to continue driving cars. These are trained professionals used to, and I guess, accidents do happen. I guess we have to mitigate that. I'd like the motion to stand and for us to approve this.
So, Mr. Chairman,
I've just looked at Robert's rules, and you actually can make a subsidiary motion to amend a main motion that itself gets voted on before the main motion.
Okay.
Which I wasn't sure about, so that's why I looked it up. Sorry if that affects what you were saying.
so before we do all that, I do have one more comment that I'd like to make. And I am going to be repeating myself here a little bit, but I did say on Tuesday that this was a difficult issue for me because I do see the value of tools in the toolbox, etc. I just want to reiterate that I'm going to say up front that I'm going to vote in favor of Commissioner Brown's amendment, but I want to make it very clear that I personally really appreciate you coming here today, Mr. Jones, and I believe that for the first time in this process, as I said earlier, that this is the third time that we have done this. This is the first time in this process that I have felt at least educated and confident that you care about your job and that you do it to the best of your ability, and I really appreciate that.
To me, I think, and I understand, we all have soft spots for animals, but my biggest concern is everything that I've been learning here is, sometimes if we take away tools, people get impatient. People decide to take matters into their own hand. That's my biggest concern because, living we're being born and raised in Grant County. And my grandfather had a ranch, and sometimes, they poison his dogs or they poison his animals. And, when people start taking things in their own hands, it starts affecting more than what they're actually intending to do. So that's been one of my concerns here, listening to Brandon here. It has, I see that it's not he understands what he needs to do, and he takes real good, care, and he thinks of the animals. And, looking at some of this stuff, what I'm afraid of is if we start taking tools away, how impatient are we going to get? How are other people going to start taking things into their own hand? Because just being a person, sometimes when you have to follow a process, these processes take a while and you get impatient. Once you start getting impatient, that's not a good thing. So I can understand where all this is headed. I do have a soft spot for animals, and I wish that there could be other things here, but there isn't. This is what's in front of me. So.
I'd like to address that, if I might. We take tools away all the time, right? It's just a question of what tool we consider to be acceptable. So I don't think we should get stuck on the concept of taking tools away. We don't allow our law enforcement to use lots of techniques because we as a society have determined that they're contrary to our core values. My cabin in the woods, we stopped using live traps for mice because if we miss a few days up there, the mice suffer. And so we use the crush the head method. We as a family made that decision. And almost all families, I would guess, have made the decision to stop putting poison out to kill pests because of the potential danger to wildlife and to our own pets. Removing those tools doesn't mean we stop trying to live in the way that works for us. If you really believe that we need to be able to set M44 traps in order to prevent other people from doing worse things, then I understand your vote. I don't believe that. I don't think it's credible at all. I think a professional like Mr. Jones has ample other tools to use. And our job isn't to make his job easy. Our job is to make his job fit what's right for this county. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a comment also, Mr. Chairman. Not being the big hunter, the big trapper and all that, some of us is clouded. But I do know, and when I was a young man, going out to the ranches, a lion gets into the calves or whatever, cowboys saddle up and they go find a lion. Now, is it the right lion?
Yeah, right.
Or is it whatever it is, but they come back with a lion. Or, if coyotes are a problem, cowboys go out and they start killing coyotes. So we have somebody now that's going to be a professional in doing it. Now, if I have to choose, the M44 is what scares me. I don't like the traps because the animals suffer. Okay? And so I like the M44s because they're lethal. The only thing I have is, and not having personal experience with any of this, to me I liken it is a landmine. Flags can fly away, somebody else can pull, the markers and whatever, and potentially there's a landmine there. And from what I hear, the plunger has to be pulled up instead of down. But not having the understanding of what I do, and I thank Mr. Griffin for bringing all these issues to light. He's passionate about it, and we want that in government, bringing all those views. But I really think that this service is necessary. I cannot make up my mind on if we should limit what he needs, and them being the professional, and the arguments that you make are valid. We no longer allow our police officers to do chokeholds, right? Which at one time they were perfectly legal. So at this point, I think I would err to the side of caution and go with Mr. Brown.
So I didn't present my amendment as a motion, but I'd like to make, because I didn't know I could, so I looked it up. I'd like to make a motion amending the main motion, which would be to add the clause that I read, which I'd be happy to read again, if that would be useful.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion. The motion was amended to add.
So according to what I was just reading, there's a vote on the subsidiary motion, which is the amendment. Whether that goes up or down, there's then a vote on the main motion.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the main motion.
No, on the
Subsidiary motion, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That way we know, when we vote on the main motion, we know if it includes the amendment or not.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion there, right? Any further discussion on that?
I would just say, I think the argument is valid that, people who, if you're gonna have, if a rancher has some coyotes and they're causing trouble and Mr. Jones can't take care of it, they're gonna take matters into their own hands. And, it's just a matter of necessity, and lots of animals will die. I think it is a necessary tool. It's not used very often. He is a trained professional. I just wanted to make that point one more time.
And that's a concern for me too. And I understand the points and the views. So, okay, so we have a motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
So now we proceed to the main motion, which has been amended. And I don't have any further discussion. I was prepared to vote against it without the amendment. I'm prepared to vote for it with the amendment.
So now we have the motion with the amendment, correct? Any discussion on that?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you all for the discussion, and I'll remind us that we can revisit any decision we make if we find that we made a mistake. Right?
Exactly.
We're all human.
Exactly. You know, if it comes out that the data or any things that Mr. Jones can bring and say, hey, look, this is why it's so necessary, and make a better argument for it, we can revisit.
You know that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So speaking of that, one of the things that I thought was very interesting about the conversation on Tuesday was Mr. Price's comments about how difficult it was to get the reporting out of the system. As Commissioner Brown said, we can always revisit something if we made a mistake. And one of the things that I find to be difficult about this conversation is that we don't actually know what's happening. Now, I am not suggesting that Mr. Jones is not telling us the truth. What I am suggesting is that in the reporting part of this process, it would be nice to know. We set out, this many wakehold traps, or this many canisters, or this much, or we did this much. It would be much easier, I think, to have this conversation with more data.
Yes.
And I totally agree. And part of the reason that, my comments is because we had a gentleman come up here, Mr. Jones, and I can see the compassion he has. We don't have a vigilante out there just doing, just going out there and going haywire and just, because there's a concern, and he does take a lot of care, a lot of precautions before he does that. So as a little part of me is to say, well, as far as the tools, and we have some valid concerns. That's why, I'm with him as far as that. I think it would have been totally different if I would have just heard the comments yesterday, because there were some comments made that I didn't really agree with, some statements made. But seeing what was presented today, and that brings up a good point, is is down the road, is there any way we can get a report to where, yes, that 44 was used, lake traps were used, how many times, for what? That way we can look at it and revisit certain things as we go down the road. So maybe it's, I don't know who I address that to or who I need to sit down with, but.
I think Mr. Jones generates the reports.
Look at that.
Actually, I think it's Mr.
Fajardo.
Mr. Fajardo.
Mr. Fajardo?
Yeah, Mr. Fajardo.
Well, maybe I can sit down with Mr. Fajardo, I don't want to sit down with him for a while, so. Well,
It will become important when trapping is banned on public land. He must report that it was done on public land or private land, otherwise it's in violation of state.
well, we're going to move on here, so. Any other comments or anything?
I think the county manager wanted to say something.
I just remind you, I have to propose these amendments to USDA, they may not accept them, so just keep that in mind.
Understood. So, are we good with this one, next item? Moving on to item M, consideration of agreement 8/19/30.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve A1930.
And I second.
We have a second by Commissioner Salas. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, may I interrupt, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So, I want to go back to just one small thing. So, the county manager just said that we would propose the amendment to the USDA. Will you clarify what you mean by that?
This is their agreement. You just made a motion and approved a motion to amend their agreement. So I have to come back with that and say, we've approved the agreement pending these changes. They don't have to accept those changes. They may tell us, good luck. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to be received. I've never tried to amend one of these in the past. But it does, they're going to have to agree with their changes before they're going to sign it. We sign it first, we send it back to them. So there will have to be a mutual agreement on that language. And but I will start working on that this afternoon.
Okay.
And maybe that will prompt a meeting with Mr. Fajardo.
Not for a while, he's on vacation.
And do you have any concerns when it comes to explaining the commission's rationale?
No, you've made it very clear what your rationale is.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll let us know right away?
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. Go ahead.
This is what local government's all about, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So my concern would be that they didn't want to do a contract with us at all. Is that possible?
Of course.
I believe it is. I don't know. I can't speak for them. I've never encountered a commission wanting to amend this agreement in the past, so this will be my first time to have this discussion with the USDA. It's also very clear in there, if we don't have a contract negotiated by June 30th, that there will be no services. So however long it takes us to negotiate this. And recall I'm on vacation for a week as well. So I will do my best to have it done before I leave and back in front of you. If there's, I'll have an answer for you as soon as I can get one.
I just want to note that I fashioned my amendment to be quite brief and to be quite limited. Right? It's 2 items. Partly because I knew that. Right? I knew that the USDA would have to agree to this.
Okay. Yep. Just want to make sure we're all clear on it.
It's going to be interesting with the responsibilities, so we'll do that.
A special meeting in our near future.
You may recall that the agreement already contains a number of stipulations.
Yep.
So this is not a completely new thing. It's just adding 2 more.
So, since I'm lost again. Item N. Okay. So consideration of agreement number A-19-31.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agreement number A1931.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item O, consideration of agreement number A1932.
So moved to approve.
Second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Item P, consideration of agreement A19-33.
Move to approve A1933.
Second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the resolutions. Q, consideration of resolution number R-19-44.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve resolution number R1944.
I second that motion.
And second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 1, consideration of resolution number R-19-46.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve resolution number R19-46.
Second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Brown.
Manager Webb, I just want to clarify, this is the item that you referred to. We had an email exchange about a message I think several of us already received from Representative Martinez about HB 43. This is not that money?
No, there's no money involved in that yet. That's what I talked about in my report. This is your budget adjustment resolution, is what I talked about in our report, that I have to submit an abstract 20-page plan. We are not guaranteed that money until they approve our plan that we.
Thank you for that clarification.
So that's what that's about. It's not a grant that we're just automatically getting.
Got it.
So, again, this is our working budget for next year.
No, this is amending our current budget. This is the last budget adjustment.
Okay, to meet our current needs for the end of the year.
Correct.
Okay.
So that all the numbers work out.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Okay, moving on to the next item. Recess as Grant County Board of Commissioners and convene as the Grant County Health Care Claims. I think I'd like to make a motion to table that, as there's more that we need to look into there.
Mr. Chair, I move that we table. So am I tabling our convening or the actual health care?
If you'd like to table to the whole agenda item.
Okay. I move that we table consideration of May 2019 health claims until the July 1st meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second to table the item. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Edwards.
He's mixing it up.
Yes. I do.
If you're not ready, I can take.
No, that's fine. I also went to the NMC. Why did they change that? NMAC is so much easier. Jeez. I went to the NMC conference in Clovis. And I've chosen a couple of things that I learned there that I want to share with you all. The first one is the New Mexico Supreme Court has formed a working group to discuss whether the state of New Mexico should authorize the use of what's called a licensed legal technician. This is a person who is a non-attorney professional who would be able to deliver specific types of legal services. And they are considering that because for several reasons, but I'm just going to give you a couple of the data points. The first one is that in 2018, 51% of new filed civil cases in district courts had one party without an attorney. And then the other thing is that 21% of New Mexico's 33 counties have 5 or fewer attorneys, and a third of the state's counties have 10 or fewer attorneys practicing in the county. And so this is a way of getting specific types of legal services into rural communities. Just wanted to give you a heads up about that. They're going to be making recommendations to the court by January 1st, 2020. The thing that I thought was interesting about this is we have had at various times a considerable discussion about the kinds of services and the kinds of training and VOTAC and that sort of thing that could be happening in Grant County to broaden the opportunity for young people in Grant County. And I just want to put out there that I don't have a clue what a licensed legal technician really is, but if it's a type of program that could be, the training could happen in Grant County and it happens, I think it's something that we should consider. I think it's a potential opportunity for people. And I just tag on to that, one of the presentations we also had was from Bill McCamley, the Cabinet Secretary for Workforce Solutions. And I sent an email to Commissioner Salas about this, thinking that he was the representative of the Commission to the Workforce Board, so you, who actually are the representative, did not get this text. But there is $25 million in funding through the Office of Work, the State Office of Workforce Solutions, that goes to counties, or goes to, it's not actually counties, the state is divided up into regions. And each region gets a portion of that $25 million based on population and poverty data. And so this money is used for workforce development. And as you may recall, the discussion that we had, why I did not want to be on that board again this year was I couldn't make the meetings. But this is one of the things that we learned from Mr. McCamley's presentation is that these regional bodies are essentially non-functioning. And the other thing that we learned about this is that it is actually the counties that are in charge of these funds. So although it wasn't really, I'm sort of going off on a little bit of a tangent, it wasn't really my intention to talk very much about this. My intention was to talk more one-on-one with the chair. But when you look at the data chart about what counties were, or what regions were taking advantage of this, our region was taking more advantage than the other regions in the state, but we are not taking nearly enough charge of this, and so there is a large potential that a significant amount of this money that we would be coming into this region, our area is not getting in terms of workforce, increasing in workforce. What's the word I'm trying to say? Training, or whatever, proposals, any of that sort of stuff. So I think we need to really look at this, and the connection there is that having a licensing program for legal technicians would be workforce development. So glad I could make that, even though
Could you tell me again what's the official name of this program? Or
it's the $25 million program. I can't tell you. Oh. I will be able to. I'll look at my documents.
Okay.
But it is through the State Office of Workforce Solutions. Okay. What is that called? What is that board called?
WIA, Workforce Investment.
Right. WIA. Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. And I will just mention that one of the things that Secretary McCamley mentioned is how many counties didn't even have representation on these regional boards. And so my thanks to Manager Webb for making sure that we are at least represented on that board, that we actually knew about it enough to appoint somebody to it. So, next thing I want to talk about is I am the alternate on the workers' compensation multi-line fund pool, whatever that's called. And there was some interesting information in that meeting that I wanted to share with you. The first is that New Mexico Counties has a substantial resource in training for members of New Mexico counties. One of them is Local GovU 2.0. They just launched it in the winter of 2018. There are 647 online training courses through Local GovU 2.0. There are lots of things that elected officials, department heads, et cetera, and ourselves as commissioners could be looking into on this. There are also, they have a substantial risk awareness program, and the risk awareness program is probably generally for road departments, sheriff, fire, and detention. But I'm sure that all of us could benefit from these classes, at least some of them. But the significant part about the RAP training is that we saw lots of data about the difference in counties that are actually taking advantage of this training in what their claims are for things like workers' comp and stuff like that. And so there is an obvious correlation between counties who are taking advantage of these trainings and their work comp claims. So I think it's worth us thinking about that. And then the other thing that was of interest to me is there are some civilian crisis intervention trainings coming up. And the essence of this is the training is training people on verbal de-escalation and mental health awareness training. And I'm sure this is not something I think of a lot in the context of being a commissioner. I do think about it because I'm in the schools a lot. And what I'm seeing in the schools is, gigantic barriers to make sure that no crazy person can get in and harm children. Crazy things happen in government offices as well. And so this training is designed to train frontline providers like firefighters, EMT, folks like that. Also assessors, clerks, treasurers, all the people in county offices that have connection, have significant contact with the public, that are at risk of being verbally abused or having a situation where a mentally unstable or unhealthy person, you're confronting them. They're doing trainings in order to bring people up to speed on how to deal with that. And those trainings are coming up July 9th and 10th in Taos, Albuquerque July 17th and 18th, and Raton in October 24th and 25th. I am going to assume that since these trainings are in the second half of the calendar year, that maybe there was one on Las Cruces that we didn't know about, but it seems like something that's well worth doing.
They do them in both halves of the state.
Both halves of the state. So maybe you missed our half of the state. It's something that I think is worth keeping an eye on. And so the connection to that is, I just wanted to talk for just a minute about the loss ratio summary for Grant County under the workers' comp. So the way this is, and I'm assuming the reason they number this fiscal year 22, 23, 24, that is how many years we've been in the pool, or how many years the pool's been around.
So I can't really explain that, but it's underneath that it talks about so which fiscal year it actually was. And really the number doesn't correspond to that.
Right. Okay. So this report runs from fiscal year 8-9 through fiscal year 17-18. And Grant County's overall loss ratio summary for that time period for workers' comp claims is 46.06%. And the way the loss ratio summary works is the number of claims paid compared to premiums paid. And so the fact that we are under 50% is really good. There are, so 32 of the 33 counties in the state are part of the workers' comp multi-line pool. And there are 10 counties that are lower than us in their loss ratio. 4 of those counties are below 25%. So the reason that this is important is because the way the funding of the pool happens is all 32 counties that participate are what's called compensation pool contributors. Have I bored everyone out of their minds? I thought this stuff was this stuff was really interesting. So what this translates into for Grant County was a 15% reduction in our compensation pool contribution for this coming year, reducing our premium from $222,000 to $189,000. So all these trainings and all of this, our exemplary record on work comp losses, etc., translates into savings. Yay. Great job, everybody. And I just want to congratulate everyone in the county, from the county manager down to the folks that are labor in the county. This means that everybody is paying attention and doing a great job. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. The other thing that I want to talk about, I'm going to go to the podium because it was the only way that we could set up this graphic.
And a safety person?
Yeah, we got a state award for our WAP success in January. By pure coincidence, I was there to receive, having had nothing to do with the program whatsoever.
So I'm putting this up here because what I really want you to see is the context of this graphic in a way that you can't really see when I just hold up this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I think, so Ben told me I could use the cursor to do this. Does anybody see the cursor?
I hear a muffled voice from Ben.
Does anybody see the cursor?
There it is.
It's over there. Yay!
You're in Colorado.
Okay, well, that was not what I wanted to do. This is dangerous, putting me up here trying to do,
Okay, you're in the Pacific.
We're traveling fast.
Yeah, we are. Are you over here to help me, Mary Ellen?
Well, it's because she's a Mac person.
Yeah.
So that is me when someone puts a Mac in front of me.
I'm a Mac person. Well, I am too. Oh, so we can get back to original here. Okay. Wow. So Ben did this very well. Does any...
Oh my. This is something else. It looks like Elko.
Ben, are you back there? This was, oh, that's what I was supposed to be doing. I forgot that part, sorry. Uh-oh. I don't think so, that's that first one we looked at. So, Google, census hard to count.
It's the fourth one.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, now, can we make, okay, no, a little slower. So I want to see the whole country first,
Okay.
but not that slow.
But not less.
There we go.
You still have our lessons. Use the slow.
Thank you so much. So what I wanted you to see here was the amount of red and orange in New Mexico compared to the rest of the country. And what this is a map put out by the Census Bureau that's called a hard-to-count map. And so what we're seeing here is that New Mexico is the hardest state to count for census in the country. And now, see, this is going to be kind of scary. Now you know how good I am with technology, especially when it's not a Mac. So what you can also see here is that we are not, Grant County is not the hardest to count county, but we do have some pretty significant areas that are hard to count. Now, I'm not telling you this because I think the committee that Misha is heading up is not going to do their job. What I was struck by was some of the information that we don't yet have that I thought was stuff that we should be thinking about. So, I'm going to census track here. It's hard for me to talk and read this thing at the same time too, obviously. There we go. Whew. So what we have here is this little area of Grant County that is less than 60% response rate, and then this area of Grant County that is less than 75% response rate, and then this rate is the next level up. But all of these people in these three different colored areas, these are areas where people do not respond to the mail census counting ballot, or whatever you call it. And so census workers have to go out to the households in these areas and actually have personal contact with the folks to count them. So I wanted you to have a little visual context for what I'm about to say on this, which is why I went to all the trouble of showing you this. So those most at risk are renters, immigrants, Native Americans, Hispanics, African Americans, children 0 to 4, impoverished, remote rural areas, and transients. And I think we can all agree that a significant number of the folks who are most at risk reside in Grant County. So what is the real reason why I'm telling you this? There are two reasons. The first one is, in Grant County, in New Mexico, the effect of a 1% undercount would cost our state $7.8 billion.
Over the next 10 years.
No, over the next 10 years. $700 million a year in funds for doing, what it is that we want. And I think that, so the kinds of programs that are affected are domestic financial assistance programs, tax credit programs, procurement programs. So there's a lot of significant loss to the state. But the other one that I think is really interesting is that this census will affect the reapportionment of Congress. And so, according to the workshop that I went to, there are people in the state that consider us to be at risk of losing a congressional seat if we have a 1% or bigger undercount. So, that's huge, in my opinion. And I'm sharing this with you because I think it's incumbent upon us as commissioners to give Misha and the group of census count folks every single resource that we can, including personal contacts, et cetera, to make absolutely sure that Grant County participates as much as we possibly can in making sure that we do not lose this money or a congressional seat. It was very eye-opening to me to hear about losing a congressional seat. That means New Mexico would not be at the table on a lot of different kinds of things. And I think, I can't resist bringing this up. What it would also mean, and I don't think either party would really be very happy about this happening, but what it could mean is that the state was represented by only one party in Congress. Now, sometimes, obviously, that happens. Anyway, when we have two Democrats or two Republicans in the seat, exactly. But it does make it, the odds are less of us at least having equal representation in Congress. So, my apologies for taking a bunch of your time, but I thought those things were really important. We did kind of talk about the Board of Trustees appointment process an awful lot earlier, but there is just one thing that I want to say in addition to everything else that's been said, and that is that, and we touched on this a little bit, but I think it's worth thinking about. Commissioner Salas, I think, was the one that really outlined this, but, because of the way the Hospital Funding Act is structured and the way the whole county hospital scenario works, appointing the Board of Trustees is the only option, the only opportunity that the Commission has to actually take responsibility for what is a county-owned hospital. And this is something that I think it is worth reminding the public about, because I hear often, more often than I want to, about the Commission making bad decisions about the hospital. And I want to emphasize to the public that the Commission does not have authority over decision-making at the hospital except for appointing the Board of Trustees. So this process is very, very, very critical to our capacity to make sure that we are able to have, at least we have a huge responsibility in that we own this county hospital, we own the facilities that the county hospital is residing in, but we have no authority to make decisions on that entity. And so while we have a whole pile of responsibility, we don't have any way to make sure that that responsibility is being carried out. And I think that Commissioner Salas could probably tell us a little bit about what the psychological impacts about that are. And the reason I bring that up is because I think it's a very stressful relationship. The relationship between the commissioners and the trustees is very stressful. And I think part of that is because we have a huge responsibility that we don't have any way of actually carrying out. And so all that to say that the other challenge in this process is that we have to sit up here in front of everybody in the county and have a thorough discussion about the candidates. And that is not an easy thing to do. It's what we get paid the big bucks for, but it's not an easy thing to do. And I just want to say that I appreciate the conversations that we've had, and I would just want to encourage each of my fellow commissioners to remember that this discussion is the discussion that we will have about these candidates is the only way that we're going to be able to make this absolutely critical decision, is that we have the courage to have the discussion we have to have in public. Whew. Boy, am I long-winded today or what? Thank you for that indulgence.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Alicia. Represented a lot of thinking, a lot of work. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you going to Clovis. So I don't have to.
I have things to say about Clovis. They're doing very interesting things in that community.
According to the paper earlier this week, Paul McCartney was cruising Main Street in Clovis. So that's impressive.
Yeah.
All right, I've got 3 items, very short. The first is much more fun than multi-line insurance pools or workers' comp or all sorts of things. It's tomorrow's Wild and Scenic Film Festival, and I want to invite my fellow commissioners, anybody listening, to join us at Whitehall, 6:30. There will be 16 short films, more or less around the theme of inspiring activism to protect our wild and scenic rivers. And of course, we have one such eligible river here in Grant County. The second item isn't as fun. It's to let my fellow commissioners know that our director of our Regional Dispatch Authority has tendered her resignation. That was accepted yesterday by the board. The board has appointed an interim director and has launched through the manager search for a permanent director for that authority. So that's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate.
And my third item is just a brief correction, and maybe nobody even heard it, but it's important to me to have these things factual. It was mentioned earlier that should the mines stop producing, they would not pay property taxes. I don't know if you caught that little reference, but that's not true. The way the copper ad valorem tax is set up, if they stop producing, the tax will revert to a standard appraisal assessment approach by the state.
On property.
On their property, that's exactly right. So it does not go to zero if they stop producing. That was it for my reports.
Thank you, Commissioner Salas.
I also want to mirror some of the comments that our commissioners have talked about with the hospital. I want everybody to know that it's very important to us. So this is something that we're all doing our due diligence on. So please, it's not going to be an easy decision, but we're going to take the measures that it's warranted to try to make the best decision. My other comment was that I don't want to see, talking about the mines and stuff, I want to see the diversity in our economy. And, we talk about the trails, which has fantastic potential. Cooperatives with the Forest Service that also has really good potential, since we have people willing to do such things right now. So I don't want to miss those opportunities. So I would like to plant the seed that we put some kind of mechanism, in motion, so that we continue to address these. I don't want us just to talk about them. It's a good idea, and then that idea drops, and we don't visit it again. And again, I think maybe it's somebody in a position, either added duties or a new position where we look at these things, because I think it's a big issue in our county, and something that could potentially bring us a lot of advantages to be able to diversify a little bit. So that's me.
Mr. Chair, can you indulge me for just a moment? Take 30 seconds, I promise. So, Commissioner Salas, I appreciate your comments about the trails, and I absolutely agree with you, and I would encourage you to visit with Mr. Larsh a little bit. He's doing certainly some preliminary work on figuring out how the county can be participating in that. I have been hot on the trails thing since before I was elected, and it would be great if you were helping me push. But I think Misha has, he's paying attention, so.
Is that it? Candy in my mouth. So, just for me, I just, what I did is, I think it was a decision that I had to make, but I resigned my position with Freeport McMoran. The effective date was June 15th. Working and doing county commissioner work was taking up a lot of time, and I feel that I wasn't really doing what I was supposed to be doing as a county commissioner, and doing what I was elected to do, and I was missing out on quite a few meetings, because once you get into those gates, whether you're in the administrative part or the mining part, it's not really easy to come out of those gates. So I had to take a step back and think of, what I was elected for, and the people that voted and had the confidence in me to come up here and do what represent District 1 and the county. So I decided that for me to resign, and my last day with the company was on June 15th, so I'm no longer with Freeport. So I'm going to go ahead and just devote my whole time, other than, my family time, is being Grant County Commissioner, and try to attend more meetings. And here soon, I need to look at some schedule stuff and put in some office hours for people that need to reach out to me and talk to me. And, I'm good with it, I'm happy with it, and I'm sort of excited. It took a lot of stress off of me, Freeport, and now I can do what I was elected to do, and then hopefully I can do well for the citizens of Grant County. And that's my report.
Can I add something that I forgot to, but it's relevant to what you're saying? We're all assigned to different committees, groups, and stuff, and they're all important. So I was hoping that this just came to me, that we could have a calendar of those things, and we could look at that calendar every month.
That's a good idea.
If you can't make a meeting, maybe somebody else can. And now that Chris is retired and I'm retired, we might have more flexibility to make those meetings. For me, there'll just be family issues that might be a little bit easier to resolve, but, I think that if you're not at a meeting when an important decision is made, then you're just gonna have to eat whatever they come up with. So, maybe that's something that we can do, and look at that calendar, and, somebody can't make it, the other, and then it also reminds us that those meetings are coming up. Like for myself, it ain't what it used to be, so I forget about it.
Well, and along those lines, I had 3 phones. I had a work phone, county commissioner phone, and a personal phone. Now I'm down to 2, and my honey-do list doesn't take over my county commissioner.
You haven't been retired too long.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Is that because we are not meeting the executive session?
Oh, that's right.
For lack of a second, it's a different motion, which is that we go into executive session in accordance. That's all right. Is that what I said, 1878, 10:15, 1?
There was no
Motion dies for lack of second. Boy, you guys are not my friends.
So, next item of executive session in accordance with New Mexico State Statute 1978, 10-50-1H.
And that was my motion.
Oh, was it?
But I was talking over other people, so my fault.
And we have a second by Commissioner Edwards. Roll call.
Chairman Swanson, Commissioners Brown, Edwards, and Salas, are you all aware that you will be entering executive session?
Yes.
And do we expect continuation?
Motion second.
Her roll call is what we counted as a vote. We've been doing that some time now. After quite a few other versions.
Right. Do we expect to take action? We do not.
Not that I'm aware of as well. Now, there is a second item. We are also going to discuss, under H8, disposal of real property, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think it was specified, so I suppose we're covered. But,
In the executive session.
yeah, we're supposed to specify the purposes for going in. And there are two purposes. One is for limited personnel matters, and the other is to discuss disposal of real property.
Right.
And on neither item do we expect any action, is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you for
Would the
clarifying.
clerk
Yes.
just make sure that's clarified?
That you're going, Commissioners, Chairman, Commissioners, you all are aware that you're going into executive session, and you are going to discuss personal matters regarding county manager and staff pursuant to NMSA 10-15-1H2, and also disposal of real property pursuant to NMSA 10-15-1H8.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.